Many of our viewers are very interested to hear your reflections on the elections. Any thoughts you had, Father, after last week's elections here in the country, and any comments on what you've seen from President Trump so far as the positions that he's beginning to fill in his cabinet?
Well, I've talked to quite a few people, and actually done some traveling, and people all around the missions have voiced that the night of the elections, they turned off the set, turned in at 11 o'clock at night, fully expecting that the next morning when they awakened, they'd turn on the set and the election would have been stolen. And the bad news, the worst possible news, would be true. It's amazing how many people said exactly the same words in exactly the same way. This is what they anticipated. But when they turned on whatever news, source they go by, and they found out that already then, the election was pretty much being called for Donald Trump. They kind of had to pinch themselves to make sure it was real, because they really expected that this election was going to be stolen and no one could prevent it. And it does, clearly, it does appear that the down ballot elections, wherever they can get away with it, notably in the states where no voter ID is required, and it's just like open season on the ballots, and they can bring in armloads of ballots and dump them down, 24 hours, 48 hours after the polls are closed, and just have these mysterious ballots arrive from anywhere, out of anywhere, but unnamed people just dropping these ballots off. Because there are so few controls in those states, external controls that can be monitored, it appears that those elections that actually are still going on right now, okay, ballots are still arriving and still being counted. It appears that there are seats being stolen. It just appears that way. I'd say the burden of proof is on those where this is happening to prove that they're not being stolen, rather than the burden on the proof of others to prove that they are being stolen. Okay, that's my own thought on the subject. And of course, it's very important because it's a matter of controlling the House of Representatives, because the House of Representatives controls the purse strings. It's clear that Trump and Vance won the presidential and vice presidential seats, and it's clear that the Republicans now have control of the Senate by, I think they said something like 54 to 47 or something like that. I forget what the count was. Of course, you always have to count in those who are fellow travelers with the Democrats among the Republicans. But there's a ferocious battle going on now, trying to gain control of the House. Last I heard, the Republicans had, in fact, been assured of 219 seats in the House, 218 necessary for control, margin of control. But we'll see how that goes. But if one were to say, okay, gee, we're home free, no. This is just the beginning. As I said before, I really don't know whether this election will make America any better than it is. But I'm quite convinced that if the election had gone the other way, America would be much, much worse than it has ever been. The question of whether our country will benefit from this is whether we take this as a grace from God, a reprieve from God. And if God has given us a reprieve from our country becoming a communist nation, that's what was at stake, our country becoming an out-and-out communist nation. If God has given us a reprieve from that, by still giving us the power to resist, then it is incumbent upon us to take the benefit of that and to get busy. And I don't know whether we will or not. Past history has shown we've just taken it for granted. When we've dodged the bullet, because we prayed, and I think it's the result of prayer, and no doubt some sacrifice too, we tend to get complacent, and complacency is death. We'd better not get complacent about this now. If God gave us a reprieve from the worst, He's also going to be giving us the grace to get busy. Remember what I was saying there, for what it's worth, that I think we have to vote, if only to preserve our right to resist evil. And if the vote goes one way, we will not have that recognized right. The vote going this way acknowledges we have the right to resist evil. We can speak against it and we can campaign and act against it. We better do that. We have to do that. God will give us the grace to do that. We have to rise up and we have to do everything in our power to push back and to defeat the evils that are putting our nation at risk and taking our nation away from God. We have to resist abortion, absolutely, as we've never done it before. We've got to get busy and we've got to make our people understand how evil abortion is. It is a satanic evil. We've got to get busy. If we don't take the benefit now that God has given us, this opportunity, and we don't act upon this, our punishment is going to be much, much worse than it would have been. We're really going to pay a price. If we don't get busy and start resisting very, very actively and very powerfully, with all of the opportunities and all of the means and resources we have, if we don't resist the perversions that are taking over our society, God will hold us accountable for this. All the more so because we prayed, He answered, He's given us now a God-sent opportunity to do what we should have done before. If we don't do it this time, with the graces that He's giving to us, we're going to have a very heavy, heavy price to pay. We've got to get busy. No, we have no choice. We know that God will follow through in providing the graces we need. The question is, are we going to embrace those graces, take the responsibility, and follow through in our fidelity to God and our love for our country, our love for its people? You know, it's our own children we're fighting for. We're fighting for the world in which they're going to grow up and raise their families. And so we can't take no for an answer. We have to get busy. And we can't just sit back and say, and wait for the next guy to do it. The question you asked about the elections, well, Trump is now deciding he's choosing the people who are going to work with him, right? He himself said the first time he was elected back in 2016, he came kind of into this afresh without really knowing. He was going on the basis of people who were recommended to him. And he realized that he made a lot of mistakes in choosing the wrong people. Now he says he has his eyes open. He understands who he's choosing. So we see the choices he's been making. Some of them I'm not so sure of, right? Some we have people who are in position to know when a choice is good or bad, okay? We've got some good feedback from people who are in a position to know that some of those choices are very good. I'd like him to, for example, choose a General Michael Flynn, in charge of the Department of Defense. I think that would be a natural choice for him to make. But I don't think that's going to happen. Instead, they're talking about Tulsi Gabbard, I think, who was a Democrat who came over. And I would hate to think that he's making like political rewards and choosing people who came to support him. The MAGA agenda. So I don't know. You wonder the motivation behind some of the choices that he's making and the wisdom of some of these things. You just hope and pray that this goes well. We have to hope and pray that he chooses the right people who will do the right thing. Again, I think the jury is still out on that. Okay. But again, even beyond that, there is still the opposition. The Democrats are determined to wreck his administration, to hobble it in every way they can, and to bring it down, okay? They've already declared war on this administration. Beware of Democrats bearing gifts. If they try to sound like they're appeasing you, it's only so they can really oppose you, right? There can be no truce between perversion and abortion and anything that we would stand for and hope for. We cannot have any truce with them or make any deals, okay, with them. I'm afraid the Republicans have already made some deals with that in their platform. And I think it's like dealing with the devil. I think it's like at least making a truce with the devil, if not making a pact with the devil. That's where what I'm saying comes in here. We now have to stand up and follow through and oppose these evil things. If we don't, well, there will be, unfortunately, hell to pay. And I think literally, in a literal sense, you know. So let's be motivated by fear of the Lord. Okay, starting with that, okay, and nothing else. Let's be motivated by fear of the Lord to say, okay, God has given me this opportunity, and God help me to follow through on this, because if I don't, then it's going to be worse than it ever was before. So there are other things that could be said about this election, but I think the bottom line is what I said in Cleveland, what I said in Florida this past Sunday. Okay, now it's up to us to respond to the grace of God, respond and correspond to the grace of God, and get busy.